Trying to predict the future is a discouraging and hazardous occupation.
The trailer for 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple has just arrived. Let's break down some of these shots of the Jimmy cult, a tamed Samson, and the potential death of one of our beloved characters. Now, let's talk a little bit about it. Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. If you're excited for some more Bone Temple action this January, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more updates on upcoming horror releases just like this. Also, the best way to support the page is by becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter, where you'll get an exclusive weekly review video as well as more perks every month. Thank you all for the support. Now let's get back to the video. Just like the 28 Years Later trailer, this one totally rocks and showcases some bloody fresh scenes between new and old characters alike. New alliances form, true natures are revealed, and death is the only thing that can be confidently predicted. Okay, geez, that was a little dark, but it does fit the vibe of this trailer perfectly, man. With that Arthur C. Clarke narration discussing how the future is completely unpredictable and may not even exist, there is this sense of meaninglessness and existentialism all over this puppy. Definitely two great concepts to start off the morning with, am I right? There's not even coffee in this thing. At the top of the trailer, we get ourselves a glimpse at life before the rage virus broke out. Passengers on a train pulling into a station that match cuts to the present day apocalypse. This makes me think that the Bone Temple movie will be structured just like the previous film 28 Years Later, where it both starts and ends with some sort of tease at what's to come next. In the first years, the flick started off with a young Jimmy Crystal, not only watching the Teletubbies, but also his family getting torn apart by the infected. His father, a deranged priest, lets the infected take him over in the church, and I'm sure that doesn't mess up this kid's psyche at all. Then, at the end of the previous film, grown-up Jimmy and what is seemingly his cult of similarly dressed followers save our protagonist Spike from a swarm of the infected attempting to indoctrinate him. Before we whip out our Jimmies, not that Jimmy, you sicko, I think that this train station sequence could be setting up something relating to Jim. You know, Bicycle Jim, Oppenheimer. As we learned recently from 28 Days Later director Danny Boyle, Cillian Murphy's character from the original flick will return at the end of the Bone Temple movie, likely to set up this third movie that is yet to be greenlit by Sony. Y'all better show up for Bone Temple in January or we're not getting that third movie. Anyways, I think that someone is in cahoots with old Jim Bob here on this train. The scene could potentially be setting up Murphy's return at the end of the flick. Talking about the Jimmies, however, the film is obviously making Jack O'Connell's character here the central antagonist based on the setup in the previous installment. Interestingly enough, the same actor was seen as vampire cult leader Remick in Sinners from earlier this year. Jimmy seems to be taking over the island village from the previous movie, likely tricking Spike into telling him where he came from. I mean, just look at the interiors of this shot, it looks just like Spike and Jamie's place from the beginning of the last film. I also have to note that Aaron Taylor Johnson is not listed in like the main cast of this flick and isn't featured in the trailer at all. Is Jimmy gonna kill this guy? Like, could you imagine if Spike gets a little vulnerable around Jimmy, says something about his dad being a prick, and then Jimmy goes over to this village island or whatever, takes it over, and then kills his dad in front of him? It wouldn't be shocking if Jimmy essentially became the Negan of this infected universe, as Jack has described the character as extremely dark and twisted, even saying, "You see what he bears witness to? That plants an early seed for what he becomes." We're in an apocalyptic world, and evil and darkness are two of the forces that have been able to still exist, and he revels in them. When we meet him, he's doing good. He seems to be doing something quite positive, but we definitely take him on a journey of twisted gaiety. So essentially, the innocence of a child, but turned evil. Just like his colorful appearance, he seems to be a character that pulls you in with his charisma, but hides his dark intentions until it's too late. Jimmy Crystal is clearly inspired by Jimmy Savile, the former British children's icon that only after his death was revealed to have abused over 100 children in his lifetime. It's a travesty that the 28 Years Later sequel is clearly commenting on. What if an apocalyptic event really happened in England before all of that was revealed? How would the world still view Jimmy Savile? Spike here seems to get sucked into this cult, even wearing a Jimmy costume of his own in the trailer. Then he even gets attacked by Jimmy with a knife later on. No worries though, my friends, I think that this piece of is definitely getting what he deserves, and that is his head being yanked off with his spine still attached. More on that later. The Jimmies also seem to be terrorizing these new characters, likely another group of survivors. They're seen here carving their collective name into the belly of a man, as his potential lady friend can only watch. You'll remember from the first years that we actually saw somebody hanging upside down who turned infected with the name Jimmy carved into their stomach. This fella in the trailer seems to be going through that same awful fate. There also seems to be a subplot in this new movie revolving around one of the established Jimmy cult members, played by Erin Kellyman. Maybe she starts to realize that her great leader isn't so great after all. Possibly the most interesting and polarizing element to this trailer, however, is everything revolving around Dr. Kelson and Samson. We get shots of Kelson once again sedating Samson, who, remember, last time we saw him was trying to rip the iodine-soaked doctor's head off. Kelson goes to give him a little pat on the shoulder, seemingly taming the beast. From the many shots that we see of Kelson in this trailer, it seems like we're getting some sort of vulnerable look at this character, something deeper into his backstory, while also pushing him forward as maybe a focal protagonist this time around. Could he be the counterbalance to the Jimmy cult here by, and bear with me on this one, forging some sort of alliance with the infected? Like I said, this is potentially going to be a polarizing theory here. If Kelson tames the Alpha, doesn't that mean he has like an entire horde of the infected on his side now? Or maybe he doesn't view it as like some sort of control element. Maybe they're just like his friends now. As we saw in the previous film, that one attempted to humanize the infected by showing a female that was pregnant giving birth to an uninfected baby. They're clearly going somewhere with that. Could it be the idea that these rage-infected people, not zombies, still have some more emotions deep down inside than what's been previously shown? Could they help our main characters under the right circumstances? This is obviously a very weird idea, but I could maybe get into it with this particular franchise if they handle it right. This would also explain the humanization of specifically Samson the Alpha in one of the most recently released stills from the upcoming movie. How did the dude get a skirt to cover up that massive schlong? He definitely was not wearing that in the previous film, trust me. Wouldn't it be weirdly wholesome to watch a scene where Dr. Kelson fashions some sort of skirt for Samson to cover up that horse stong? Jesus Christ. In turn, this could make for a bloodbath of a third act, where the Jimmies seemingly take over the Bone Temple, pillaging previous locations from the last film like Vikings. Based on this shot where I think we see Dr. Kelson on fire, the Jimmies may kill the harmless doctor to take over his sanctuary. That's when a pissed off Samson races in to avenge his dead friend. As we learned from the tone-shifting final sequence of 28 years later, however, we know the Jimmies can handle some of the infected, but can they simultaneously handle some of their own members rebelling against them? It looks like Spike and Jimmy's relationship is going to deteriorate very quickly throughout the events of this film, considering that shot with the knife and, well, Jimmy just looking like a total dick throughout this movie. It also seems like Erin Kellyman's character could potentially rebel against him as well, maybe even assisting Spike in some sort of mutiny. That could be the climax of the next film, the demise of this big bad cult leader. I think that would make for an insane and very ambitious fourth entry in this really bizarre series. That's just my theory as to what I think is happening here in the 28 Years Later sequel, as well as somehow leading into Jim's return to the franchise. If this is all true, you have the takedown of a looming antagonist and the infected potentially working with normal humans now. The only problem left is the UK re-entering the rest of the world. I imagine that's what the third film and Bicycle Jim here will be dealing with in entry number 3, and technically entry number 5 to the whole franchise. That is, if it gets greenlit by Sony. Please, Sony, greenlight this. I need this trilogy wrapped up. What do you guys think about 28 Years Later, the Bone Temple, as well as this new trailer? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you all again for watching. Please subscribe, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.